to be lonely. It's that feeling that you have. You could be in a room, crowded, filled with people. You're in the midst of a party, and yet you still feel alienated. It's a common human condition to feel lonely, to feel alienated. And we try to quench this thirst. We try to scratch this itch, this lonely alienation. We try to use people to soothe and solve this problem. Try to use things. We buy more stuff because we're alienated. The thing is, no matter how many things you buy, no matter how many people you get in relationship with, you still have that feeling and you can't quite quench that thirst. The reason being is because the problem is not that you're alienated from people. The problem is not that you're alienated from things. The problem is not that you're alienated from success. The issue is this: you're alienated from God. That's what's making you lonely. Not only are you lonely, but you're separated. You're separated. And I'm not just talking about geographic distance. You and an ant can be separated. You can be right next to each other. The ant could be crawling on you. But you're separated because your thoughts are in two different places. You could be thinking about the deepest things in life, and the ant is thinking about, where is that breadcrumb? And so you're alienated. You're separated. And alienated has another connotation. Alienation means that you belong to another. You don't belong. And many of us, if you're from another country, coming here to the United States, you may have felt alienated. I know when I was in Ethiopia, as much as people said, oh, you belong here, this is your country, I still felt alienated. It's something I couldn't get used to, men holding hands. I didn't like the way they did things at the bank. And so I felt alienated because I belong to another. And this is our state with God. Once you were alienated from God, but now you're reconciled by the gospel. You've been alienated. And he says you were enemies in your mind. And that word enemy is not passive. You were active enemies. And the same word is used. Jesus uses the same word in Matthew 13:28. He explains in this parable about the wheat and the weeds. And somebody asks, who put those weeds there? And Jesus says, an enemy did this. He's saying the weeds are there because somebody was hating on the farmer. And so they actively planted these weeds. And so he's saying that we are actively hostile to God. We're enemies, actively hostile to God in our minds. Mind, our intent, and our purpose. We're hostile to God in our intent and our purpose. And then he says, because of your evil behavior, or as shown by your evil behavior. You may say, what evil behavior? I haven't killed anybody. Not committing adultery. I'm a nice person. We all have evil behavior, and it's not just the heinous things. One thing I realize, the majority of us are introverts, and there's secret sins. There's things that, an extrovert, man, they let all their sins hang out, man. You know when an extrovert is sinning. Sometimes you can harbor bitterness in your heart. Or you could lie, and I'm not just talking about big lies. It could be little white lies, just, fudging the truth. You could be the most moral and upright person and still cast judgment on other people. It's evil behavior. And Paul is saying this is what you once were. Alienated, enemies in your mind, displaying evil behavior. One writer said it like this: hostile purpose finds natural expression in evil deeds. It'd be good for us to review our past and see where we had this hostile purpose, these evil deeds, this evil behavior. Because then we see the value in being reconciled by the gospel. Turn to your neighbor, tell them I'm reconciled by the gospel. That's what I once was, but I'm reconciled by the gospel. And so he points to the past, and then he brings it into the present. He says, once you were. And then look at verse 22. He says, but now he has. Those are freeing words. A lot of times you could dwell on the past too much and think about the past and all the things that you used to do and all the mistakes that you used to make and all the regrets that you have, the decisions that you made in life. But God has changed all of that. And Paul says, but now he has. And he's not just talking about this present moment. He's saying this present order of things. Everything has changed, but now he has done what? He's reconciled you. He's brought you back. You were alienated from God. You were an enemy in your mind. You were distant from God. You ever felt distant from God? A lot of times I go through the week sometimes, and when things don't turn out right, I say the wrong words to somebody, or I just don't feel good in my body. And I feel distant, like God could be out there in some other galaxy. But Paul is saying that's not the present order of things. The present order of things is that God has reconciled you. You have a relationship with him. He's reconciled you and he's brought you back. How did he do it? Paul says he's reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death. Christ's physical body through death. Sounds like he's overemphasizing something. He could have just said Christ's body or the physical Christ, but he says Christ's physical body. Reason why he's saying this is because he really wants to make a point. I told you last week that there were some false teachers in the church, and they were saying that Jesus was less than God. And not only were they saying that Jesus was less than God, but they were saying there could be another way. There's some other way to get close to God besides Jesus. And Paul is saying, no, make no mistakes about it. It's Jesus that gets you close to God. See, these false teachers thought that if you prayed enough and if you fasted enough, you get like a vision from some angels. If you investigate what was going on in the church, they thought that if you prayed enough and if you fasted enough, and if you worked hard enough and did all the right things, you get a vision from some angels and they whisk you away to God.